Well, it's the first Tuesday of the month, so we've got a live episode as usual, and you'll probably notice it looks a little bit different. That's because I invested in Streamyard. I don't like the price, but I do like the results that we get and the ability to actually have a proper view and do some screen sharing. So I'm sure that this episode will be much better than our previous lives now that we're not using that ridiculous nonsense that is YouTube's supposed live feature. Hello, my name is Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. As I said, it's another live. Hopefully you're joining us live. If you're not viewing this at around 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday evening, that means you're watching a replay. I know we've had some people in the past think that our lives were playing at like 6 in the morning or something like that. That's just when they get re-uploaded. So I'm here and I've got my trusty volunteer assistant, Richard, working in the background. You won't see him, but I'll get him to throw some things up on screen for us at the appropriate times, and I think this will be a good show. So as always, looking for comments, always happy to have them. Glad to see we've already got one viewer. It looks like it's my gym tutor who was commenting on my jacked frame a couple episodes ago. So it's the 7th of November, 2024, and I guess we can't completely ignore the events in the United States. And it's not like they don't affect us. I was actually thinking to myself in the lead up to the American election, in some ways, the American election is more impactful on Canadians than Canadian elections can be. That's because the United States is just so much bigger than us, especially economically. I think when things are going well in the United States, things tend to go well in Canada. When things are going poorly in the United States, they tend to not go so well in Canada. And I mean, it's not surprising. They're 10 times our size. And really, the United States is the modern empire. And we're a vassal state of that empire. And we're also the vassal state that's in the closest proximity to the empire. So it's no surprise that when an emperor gets selected, that's going to have more impact than just the local duke, which I think is a reasonable analogy for our relationship with the United States. So Donald Trump has done an epic comeback. It's not since the 19th century, back when we had an 18 before the numbers, when Grover Garfield was the last American president to be president, to lose an election, and then to make a comeback and get elected as president again. So it's certainly something very historic, no matter which way you slice it. There's some truly impressive meltdowns that have been going on in social media and legacy media alike. I mean, MSNBC and CNN, I've seen some pretty epic nuclear meltdowns by some of their supposed journalists. I mean, it doesn't even, as much as I criticize CBC and as biased as CBC is, they're not as nakedly biased as the American media is. I mean, the tiers were something to behold. And of course, the social media, I'm sure many of our viewers have seen I don't really understand why people do this, but the videos of people posting themselves crying about the results of the American election. So from my perspective, just because I need something to talk about until someone asks me a question, but I'm guessing that some viewers might be a bit interested in what my thoughts on the Okay, I think we're back. So I had to switch over to my laptop because I don't know what on earth StreamYard is doing with my desktop. It didn't want to cooperate with my laptop either. I had to force it to use my laptop camera. Don't ask me. I'm going to have to follow up with StreamYard, I guess. But for the amount they charge, this should work a lot better. This is ridiculous. So my apologies for that. You test these things out ahead of time. It's all good. And my lighting's not exactly quite right, but let me try to remedy that. See, make it a bit better. Maybe Streamyard's run by Democrats, and that's why they were upset. I'm not sure what that was all about, but anyway, I guess we won't belabor the Trump thing too much. But on the whole, I guess I would say I don't like Mr. Trump personally. I think his personal life is disgusting. I mean, he's simulated marriage 6 or 7 times, I believe. I say simulated marriage because I doubt you can validly get married that many times. But these are matters of the private sphere. And it's not like all our other politicians and all the people who are criticizing him saying, oh, he's so disgusting, as if they haven't had multiple partners, as if they haven't been divorced. It's the hypocrisy is really staggering. What I look at, though, is the policies. Not, if you look through the noise, oh, he's a misogynist, oh, he's racist. I mean, is he really? You look at the actual policies. I mean, a lot of them sound fairly common sense, like, stopping illegal immigration at the border. To me, in a normal society, that seems to me like something that should be pretty reasonable and that everyone would agree on. Breaking the law is breaking the law. I'm not exactly sure, because I haven't looked into history of it, how it came to pass that somehow, if it's immigration law you're breaking, that's okay. It's just other laws that you should follow. They'll say that, well, these people come from difficult backgrounds, but I would say the people who come from difficult backgrounds in criminal law that I deal with, the vast majority of them come from difficult backgrounds. And as judges say to them repeatedly, I have sympathy for your difficult background, but having a difficult upbringing, having a difficult background, having difficult things in your life doesn't justify breaking the law. So I don't see how it's any different when it comes to immigration law, but that's just one thing. So I don't know if we've lost all of our viewers thanks to StreamYard's issues that it was giving there, but let's talk about something that's come up. Richard, could you put up the article with the squirrel? Because I think this is just so classic of law enforcement in 2024. Well, there's so much about this situation that's 2024. That's the whole Peanut the squirrel thing. So here's the article here. This is actually a CBC article. This one's titled "Man Slams Surreal Decision by New York to Seize Put Down Social Media Darling Peanut the Squirrel." So we just go down here a bit. Just says, a man who took in an orphaned squirrel and made it a social media star vowed Saturday that New York State's decision to seize and euthanize the animal won't go unheard. So I think it just says here, the State Department of Environmental Conservation took the animals on Wednesday from Luongo's home, an animal sanctuary in rural Pine City near the Pennsylvania border. The agency said it had gotten complaints that wildlife was being kept illegally and potentially unsafely. So, Richard, you can stop sharing that. I mean, this is just so 2024. I mean, first of all, the fact of a squirrel becoming a social media star, I mean, that's just so 2024 that, people are, I mean, this is the year where the whole ridiculous Hawk Tuah thing, that took social media by storm. I mean, this is the type of stuff that people are very interested in. Someone keeping a squirrel as a pet as well, so 2024. But then, of course, you didn't have a license. So, the United States, they have millions of illegal immigrants flowing across the border. They've got Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment complexes as if we're in a Judge Dredd movie. They've got all kinds of problems. But no, we're going to bring out the TAC team because a guy has a squirrel without a license. So we've got some questions flowing in now. Thank you. So Richard just put one up. What is your from Andrew Ria? What is your take on the individuals banned from City Hall during the summer for violating the respectful workplace policy? Was the city in the right? And if not, who is to stand accountable? Well, I don't. The problem is I only have one side of the story on that. I only have the side. I've only been exposed to the side of the story that's been published in local media. Just saying that there are some people who are being. I can't remember what legacy media had to say about it, but something along the lines of there were people who were being disruptive and disrespectful and harassing or whatever, so they had to be banned for the safety of the council. I don't know what those people were actually doing. No one has contacted me to give me the other side of the story. So without knowing both sides of the story, I can't really comment on whether City Hall was in the right. I would just say generally, I think it's, as a general proposition, questionable and problematic for public officials to be banning citizens from attending council meetings just because they don't like what they had to say. I think, now, that said, public officials should not be having to deal with the death threats or behavior that's truly that could be making them feel like legitimately unsafe, not like the unsafe of, oh, he looked at me, now I feel unsafe, but like realistic, reasonable fear. I mean, they're still human beings. They still deserve to have some safety, but I mean, you should have a bit of a thick skin to get into politics, and you for sure should be willing and ready to hear people who disagree with you, maybe even vehemently disagree with you, and be able to have some kind of response or dialogue without just excluding them from the public space. So I think the problem with these safe space policies, they have the potential, I think, to stifle public discourse and to make these municipal councils just echo chambers where the council just hears things that they agree with. So I think it's potentially problematic in that regard. So Samantha's posted some questions about some landlord-tenant situation she's involved in. I don't do landlord-tenant law. I've never done it. I'm afraid I don't know anything about landlord-tenant law, so I really have no way of commenting on that. So I would recommend reaching out to someone who does do landlord-tenant law. It tends to be paralegals who do landlord-tenant law. I knew a really good one in Stratford, but unfortunately he went to the dark side and took up a position with one of the local municipalities. I don't think it's Stratford. I think it was another city I saw him in. So I don't have anyone that I can recommend. But landlord-tenant law I don't do, and CAS law I absolutely do not do. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. So if you're having problems with CAS and you're looking for some help in getting your child back, I get a good family lawyer. I would and see if you can qualify for legal aid to see if they can assist you. And in Essex County, I'm afraid I don't know. I don't know anyone who does that law in Essex County. If you were more this way, or specifically in Guelph, I know a fantastic family lawyer who does who likes fighting CAS that is in Guelph, but that's fairly far afield from Essex County. So just going back to Peanut the squirrel, I said there's so much that's 2020 about, or 2024 about that, but and I kind of sarcastically commented on law enforcement. They're bringing out the TAC team now. I don't know if they actually brought out a tactical squad to take the squirrel into custody and to euthanize it. I just use that to demonstrate the ridiculousness of law enforcement jumping to making a big deal out of a squirrel on TikTok when there's much, much bigger fish to fry. But I think this is part of an ongoing issue
that I've talked about many times on Don't Talk TV, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, we'll talk about it again. I mean, let Richard put up the article about how many churches have been torched or otherwise vandalized in Canada in the last couple of years. I mean, this is an example from Canada, obviously, but the same stuff goes on in Canada. Talked about this a lot of times too, where we have from Nation Talk. Not exactly sure. I'm not too familiar with this one, but they have a commentary from an individual, Mr. Giesberg, saying a staggering number of churches burned, more than thought. And if you look at this article, they're now saying that there's upwards of 400 Christian churches that have been burned or vandalized in Canada ever since the whole Kamloops discovery, which, as we know now, not one single body has been found. It's not a mass grave. The underground radar was obviously detecting rocks or something like that. We've got 400 churches torched or otherwise vandalized in Canada. And to my knowledge, not one charge has been laid. Police completely unable to solve any of these. I suspect, I mean, they haven't stated why they haven't been able to solve any of these, but a part of it is almost certainly they don't have the resources to devote to it. But they do have the resources to devote to spending, they have millions of dollars and thousands of man hours to hunt down a guy who made a meme once for a so-called white nationalist group. And I've referenced this a bunch of times. It's episode, Richard, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is it episode 135? I reference it, but I think it's worth bringing up again. And I'm just doing a quick search on my my thing. Oh yes, here we go. Let me get some screen sharing of my own going here. Okay, well, I'll let Richard show the episode here, or point us to which episode. I feel like a professional podcaster here, where I've got a minion that I can send to look up things. So, Richard, you can check on that in the background. I'm going to share a screen here. I don't have. Yeah, here we go. So here's the article that I've found of interest here. This is what I refer to. You may have heard me mention this on a number of episodes recently, where I bring up the fact that the police don't have resources to find out who's burning down all these churches, even one of them. But they search the ends of the earth to find this dark foreigner guy. So this is an article from Vice, because Vice were very proud of themselves. They played a role in assisting the RCMP to, I guess, bringing this person to the RCMP's attention. So they mentioned this: Patrick Gordon MacDonald, a 26-year-old man, was arrested by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and charged with participating in activity of a terrorist group, facilitating terrorist activity, and commission of an offense for a terrorist group, being the willful promotion of hatred. So, they talk about how Vice did this investigation of theirs in 2021, exposing MacDonald's long history of working as the chief propagandist with the neo-Nazi terrorist organization Atomwaffen. Now, I did look up Atomwaffen. I actually hadn't heard of them before this individual was arrested. They have been designated a terrorist group, and apparently, I think in Europe, maybe in the United States, there have been some incidents where I think there was a person abducted at one point. So they have done some bad things, and they're the type of people you'd expect them to be looking into. So it seems, assuming they actually did these things. Just because I looked it up on a Wikipedia page doesn't mean they actually did the things they're accused of. So his participation is that he was a critical figure in development of neo-fascist accelerationism aesthetic. So basically what this guy did is he came up with artwork, and that's landed him a criminal charge. They searched the ends of the earth to find a guy who made up an art style. So I just find it very interesting that this is, there's no expense spared to find this individual. And let me just share again very quickly here, just for educational purposes only, of course, so that you can see what type of stuff he's making. So there's the Dark Foreigner Network. There's an example of some of his artwork. Now that one's kind of small, you can't really see it too well. So this kind of style here, no man, no problem, and a picture of Stalin there. So I guess this aesthetic was developed by this man. So that's terrorism, according to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. It'd be interesting to see how that case plays out in court. I have no idea who that individual decided to hire. I haven't been able to find any information about the case since he was arrested. That or my memory's going, and I've just forgotten. Extremely busy. So that's something that bears looking into. Richard, you could put up that question. A question from Dottie Rich. A doctor from Grey Bruce Health was signing exemptions from the jab during COVID. Now the court has said he needs to turn, or she needs to turn over her client records. Asking for my thoughts on that. So I guess my answer would be in two parts. Part one, the law as written. Does the court have the power to order that? Does the College of Physicians and Surgeons have the power to require those records be handed over? With the caveat that I don't practice medical law. This is just from my general legal knowledge, and not an area that I focus on or specialize in. My understanding is that they do have that power. So part two is, do I think that's a good thing? And I would say absolutely not. I think that is extremely problematic. I mean, it would be akin to a lawyer having to hand over the deepest, darkest secrets of his clients to the Law Society. And now that it can happen in extremely rare circumstances, but I've never actually heard of it happen. The only times I've seen privileged documents being shared by lawyers is when clients waive that client solicitor privilege. And usually that's in the context of clients trying to accuse a former lawyer of ineffective assistance of counsel, colloquially incompetence. So in that situation, lawyers are allowed to defend themselves. And in fact, in order to raise an ineffective assistance of counsel claim, accused people have to waive that client solicitor privilege. And then at least portions of the lawyer's documents will be revealed, because they can show, well, this person, usually it comes down to, in criminal law, the ineffective assistance of counsel most frequently comes up where clients will say, well, my lawyer never asked me about that, so he didn't know that I was going to say that, so therefore he is incompetent. And then the lawyer produced a note saying, well, no, here's all the discussions I had with him. I asked him that particular question, and he never told me what he said in court, so that's why I didn't know that. But I've gotten a little bit off into the bushes there. To get back to it, I think it's extremely, extremely problematic, especially in this particular circumstance. Why does the College of Physicians and Surgeons, why do they want that information? They want to know who hasn't received a COVID vaccination, I think. It's an extreme violation, in my view, of the physician-patient relationship. But I mean, that said, this is in the context where there is no physician-patient privacy anymore. And people should be aware of this, is that your physicians will report on you. Like I would never, ever, if I was ever feeling depressed, never, ever tell your doctor about that. Because, well, first of all, I mean, let me back up. I'm not giving medical advice, but from a legal perspective, I would be extremely hesitant to ever, I personally would never tell my doctor that. I mean, because first of all, I wouldn't want to take those drugs that they hand out for antidepressant. I think there's more effective ways of dealing with that. But much more importantly, they will report you to MTO and you could potentially lose your license. They will report you to the firearms officer if you own firearms and you'll lose your firearms license. In fact, physicians are required to share this information. I think it's terrible. How can you go and confide in your physician and tell them what's wrong with you if you're scared that they're going to destroy your life because they are required to report these things? I mean, if I was a physician, I don't know. I don't think I would do it. I guess I probably wouldn't be a physician for very long. And it's probably a good thing I didn't get into medical school, because that was actually one thing when I was younger, I considered that I wanted to go into medicine and become a medical doctor. But once I got into university, first year university taught me pretty quickly that I wasn't as good at science as I thought I was. And I figured, well, I better change course. And hey, I was getting pretty good grades in the arts, literature, and history. So I thought, well, you know, and I always liked debate club in school. So I thought, well, let's give law a try. And here we go, 20 plus years later. I guess it worked out all right. So, I guess moving along here, Richard, what else have we got that we can share them? I know there's a few other things that I was thinking of. Well, let's talk about the immigration fraud discovered by CBC. I think that's a good one. And this goes back to the whole, it ties in nicely with what I was just talking about with the police having millions of dollars and thousands of man hours to hunt down a guy who made some artwork, but they can't find out what CBC of all people were able to find out in about 5-10 minutes. So Richard, you can just maximize that. We'll play a bit of this clip.
Contact several Facebook and Kijiji sellers.
LMI is available immediately. I'm just gonna say, hello, I am interested.
It doesn't take long to get our first response.
Oh.
One of the LMI sellers starts engaging us on WhatsApp.
How much is your CRS score?
And then another seller gives us a call.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi. I received a message on WhatsApp. So looking for LMI.
Within minutes, he names his price.
This LMI is a paid LMI. It will be employer cost and the immigration lawyer cost.
Okay.
It will be total nearly $25,000 on that.
You heard right, $25,000. We play our conversation to immigration lawyer Ravi Jain.
Nearly $25,000 on that.
I can absolutely assure you that no lawyer would charge anywhere near that amount. The issue is that this person is selling an LMIA and they're paying the employer, and that's offside. They're not allowed to do that.
Yes. I just need to
Back in our test room, that other LMIA seller who messaged us earlier.
Oh, she's calling me. Hello?
With this seller, the cost is $28,000. But there's a twist.
Is there a job?
No, that's a without job.
There's no actual job. You just no.
Okay, that's outright fraud. So this person is doing something very illegal, and they're doing it quite openly.
If there's no job, like in terms of the pay stubs, and how would that work?
So will be sharing the pay stubs like bi-weekly or so. It's just that the amount of your net pay you have to pay.
So I would have to give you the money then?
Yes.
Oh.
Essentially, they're manufacturing the payroll. The program requires that there be a legitimate job associated with it, that the person's going to the job, they're getting it, they're getting paid, that there's, a Canadian.
Okay, so you get a flavor of that there. I mean, that took CBC like a couple minutes, and they're able to find clear and blatant immigration fraud going on. I mean, and that's the illegal stuff. I mean, the legal immigration is outrageously through the roof. And interestingly, of all people, the the Liberal Party of Canada is actually backtracking somewhat. Now, it's insignificant. It's a soundbite. They're saying what they need to say so that people can think, oh, the Liberals are listening to us. But I mean, hey, at least the Liberal Party of Canada is actually listening, and they're at least reducing immigration somewhat. That brings me back to the whole political thing, what I said, that I think American elections are more impactful than Canadian elections. One of the reasons why or at least this American election, the last 3, including this one, were more impactful is because there's actually a difference. You can say what you like about Donald Trump, but at least you can say he's actually an outsider. He's not part of the Uniparty. In Canada, we've just got the Uniparty. So, why not go there a little bit? Actually, it's been a while since I've had Conservative Party of Canada supporters coming into my comments box and scolding me for speaking to Maxime Bernier and upbraiding me for splitting the vote and not supporting Pierre Poilievre. Richard, play a bit of the Pierre Poilievre video. I mean, this right here is exactly why I'm not going to be a party to the destruction of my country. So I'm not going to vote for him. He's going to win without my vote anyway. But
we will restore the best immigration system in the world. Speaking of healthcare, we've got 20,000 immigrant doctors, 32,000 immigrant nurses in Canada today who cannot work because they can't get a license. We will create, in the professions, what we did as a country in the trades 7 decades ago. We will create a national licensing standard. Provinces can voluntarily adopt a blue seal. So immigrant doctors and nurses can take a test, prove they're qualified, and get to work reducing those wait times in our hospitals. And when they get here, they will see that the Canadian promise is restored. A promise that anyone from anywhere can do anything, where it doesn't matter where you come from. It matters where you're going. It doesn't matter who you knew. It matters what you can do.
And we will bring a direct flight to Amritsar. We will rebuild the Canada that we know and love. A Canada where it doesn't matter if your name is Martin or Mohammed, Singh or Smith, Polyev or Patel. The solution is obvious. End the deportations and allow them to apply just like everyone else to become permanent residents. That's what I'm calling for. Stop the deportations. Listen, we have a worker shortage in Canada. We have a demographic problem. Our population is too old. We need 700 young people. We need 700 young people to work.
Okay, we don't need to listen to more of that. I think the point is made. And one of our viewers here, Kathy Sharp, has commented that the American illegals will be flooding into Canada to avoid the deportation started by Trump, and Trudeau will allow them in. Well, first of all, Trump hasn't started deporting anyone yet. He said he's going to. We'll see if he actually does. But I think absolutely there will be a lot of illegal immigrants flooding into Canada. If I recall, that's what happened last time Donald Trump was president, is we had lots of illegal immigrants coming into Canada, and say Trudeau will let them in. Well, I would submit that Pierre Poilievre is going to let them in just as equally. I mean, right there, that last clip where he's saying stop the deportations. That was deportations. That was those students who were protesting over their visas expiring and them not wanting to leave. Well, they're illegal immigrants at that point because they've overstayed their visa. They should be deported. And Mr. Poilievre, we don't need 700 more young people because our own young people can't get jobs. I know I can say as a father of some young people, and Richard, I'm sure will back me up as well. It isn't that easy for young people to get jobs right now, contrary to the claims that there's these shortages. And I mean, like a lot of the young people I know, they're trying to get into the jobs that people are crying the most about that are low on applicants, being the trades, and it's still way harder than it should be to get into the trades. So I don't think we actually have a shortage of workers. We have no need of people who've overstayed their visas staying in Canada, and we have no need of issuing all kinds of temporary worker visas, in my view as well. I think it's worth noting that there's always this commentary that Canada can't survive without all kinds of immigration because there's not a high enough birth rate. Now, I agree. I would like to see our birth rate higher, but I consider a country like Poland, because I have relatives in Poland, so I know a bit about what goes on there. Poland has had essentially zero immigration for at least since it came back into existence at the end of World War II. Or even, I guess we could say, after it came back into existence at the end of World War I. Zero immigration for over 100 years. Their birth rates are even worse than Canada's. And guess what? They have no economic problems. Poland is actually one of the strongest economies in the European Union right now. It's, and I was there last year. You viewers may remember, or if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend that you check out the videos I recorded while I was in Poland, because not only were they fun to record and a little bit different out of the ordinary, but I think it's really interesting to look at a country that's different from ours, how they do things, especially the video where I put up things that you would never see in Canada, like the police pepper spraying and water cannoning illegal immigrants who are trying to break through their border wall, which Poland built that border wall. I think I say in the video how fast they built it. They built it in a couple of months. Now, granted, their border with Belarus is a lot shorter than the United States' border with Mexico, but it just shows that where there's a will, there's a way. And especially when you consider, I think the United States has sent something like $175 billion to Ukraine. You could build as many walls as you want with $175 billion. And KA is commenting on Canada turning into a free-for-all, people claiming they have skills, not actually having skills. Well, as that CBC clip proved, I'm sure there's a lot of people. I mean, if there's got to be a market for that, for CBC to be able to find those ads and get those offers that fast, there has to be a market. These people aren't just sitting out there with no one calling them. They're doing that because there's a market. So that tells you right there. I mean, this isn't speculation. That is making a reasonable inference based on the evidence, and which is something we do in the law all the time. It's clear that there must be many, many people that are taking advantage of that, who don't have the skills, but they have a cool $25,000 that they're willing to throw down. And now that's probably a lot of money where these people come from, but hey, if it's a free ticket to Canada and free healthcare, and it is free for them, it's not free for us because we've been paying for the healthcare by our taxes for many, many years. But to someone who just shows up and has healthcare immediately, that's free because they haven't been paying any taxes. A lot of them getting government assistance. I mean, you can search this. I don't have the link at the tip of my fingers. We can post it later, but you can search and find all the job grants and all the assistance that's given to immigrants. Assistance that is not given to Canadian citizens, which we know from the expanding homeless crisis in Canada. Okay, well, everything's going crazy today. I have my phone, which is always on on Do Not Disturb, is actually not on Do Not Disturb. So we're going to have to wrap this up soon. So the question here from Andrew Ria, what would the difference be between someone being offended by a swear word and someone offended by a religious article of clothing be in regards to discrimination, wanting someone kicked out? Well, the difference would be that the religious clothing would be protected by the Human Rights Act, be it the federal or the provincial Human Rights Act. Whereas your right to be offensive and profane and rude is not protected by the Human Rights Code. So that would be the difference. And so that said, we're closing in on the hour mark here. I know we had some technical difficulties and that delayed things, but I really only had about 45 minutes to do this show. And I do want to announce that we're going to be doing another live next week. We'll be interviewing a lady named Michelle Sterling, a journalist, historian. She's looked into the residential school question. And I thought it would be very interesting to have her on Don't Talk TV while it's still legal to do so. Because as we know, there's some proposed laws that hasn't been tabled in front of Parliament yet, but there's talk about criminalizing any discussion of the residential school question that does not conform to a specific narrative. Now, we don't know exactly what that definition or narrative is going to be yet, but I can pretty much guarantee that you won't be allowed to have discussion or debate, because there will just be one version and you go to jail if you disagree with that version. Very similar to the Conservative Party of Canada's Holocaust discussion law, I'd call it that, because it's a crime to downplay the Holocaust, but the Holocaust is so imprecisely defined that it's unclear what you're allowed to talk about. So essentially, you can't talk about it without fear of going to jail. So they want to do that with residential schools. And so we're going to speak to Michelle Sterling next week. So tune in next week. Should be a very interesting and potentially soon to be a legal discussion. So I wanted to have that discussion while it was still legal to have such a discussion. I guess some would say this is white supremacy, but I'm of the view that it's good to, the way to truth is being able to research things and discuss different ideas, and not just having this one thing that you're locked into by the government. Otherwise you go to jail. I mean, even when it comes to the Holocaust, I wouldn't be surprised if in another couple of decades people don't know anything about the Holocaust anymore, because since you're not allowed to talk about it without going to jail, even the official government narrative may start falling out of people's memory. So tune in next week. And of course, this discussion here is definitely not legal advice. Actually, I didn't talk about as much law as I usually do. This is more of an opinion one. But if you need legal advice, call a lawyer. You can call another lawyer or myself. The number's been scrolling through the little bottom thing along with my website throughout this episode. If you have show topics you'd like to see discussed, we've got the email address running on the little bottom bar there right now, don'ttalktv@protonmail.com, or leave a comment in the comment section. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, and informative, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and following us on social media.